All right, if you could buy 220 units that would value at $15 million and you could pick it up for $3.2 million, how hard would you fight for that deal?
The deal of the decade comes around every week. No. That is awesome. I would fight pretty hard. And I would do everything I could to find the money. That's a screaming deal. But along with that, I'd not only try and find the right money, but find the right team. Find the money, but find the right team. Because that's a big transaction. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a lot to take down. I mean, I don't know the particulars of it, but I would imagine there's going to be quite a bit to it if you're buying it for that deep of a discount. Well, not discount, but buying it for that price with the potential of $15 million. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So I just aligned with a group that has just flipped, not 220 units, but just smaller than that. And they did it in Oklahoma. They have a crew of 22 guys that are just finishing this project. This was introduced to me, and they're ready to relocate from Oklahoma to go and rehab this 220 units. And they'll be able to turn it in 6 to 12 months.
Nice.
So you take this $3.2 million project, we're going to put probably another $5 to $7 million into it, and it's worth $15 to $18 million when it's all said and done.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, mind blown, right?
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, this is different scale, and you got your guys like Grant Cardone, they talk about these kinds of big deals, but they're talking about it in terms of like, okay, we're going to go and pick this up and we're going to put normal financing down. We have these partnerships, et cetera. Well, this is one that has been wind and water damage from a hurricane that came through 4 years ago. They lost it to the bank, and the bank cannot get rid of it fast enough to get it off their books. And I think there's some other suffering that's happening on the bank side that they're trying to dump this off.
Free up some money?
Yeah, they got to free up some money. And so they've taken what they had offers 2 years ago at $11 million with its current damages.
And they didn't take it.
And they didn't take it.
Wow.
And so now they have got to get rid of it, and they're willing to take $3 to $3.2 million.
Wow.
So I was going through the details of this deal earlier today, and we broke down everything to the actual doors and lights and systems that need to be put in place, a full redo on all the plumbing, all the electrical, and $7 million is kind of the max budget.
Okay.
Right? And you got to go through this in great detail.
Definitely.
And make sure that it is high quality, especially, and then if you're going to take, the quarter of the units that are occupied and you're going to increase the value of the whole property, you have to be prepared to rehab the whole property.
Yes.
Meaning you're going to relocate some of these tenants into different buildings in order to rehab those units as well. And so we're going through this detail, and some of my questions for you, Jason, is do you buy it and flip it? Do you buy it and hold it? What would you do?
I would buy it, fix it, hold it, leverage it, and go buy something else.
I love it. I love it.
That's what I would do. Because then you can take that 3.5 and I mean, obviously you're gonna have money for rehab, but man, if you could be into something at 50% of value, you could get $3 or $4 million like that with any bank, especially if it's performing well and it's more than covering its mortgage. And even if you worked out a deal where they could get their money right off the bat from all the rents that are going in. The thing that I think people don't understand is why would a bank give me money for that? Well, okay, so look at it from the outside. Okay, banks, this is Jason, this is Colter, whoever it is. Why would they give money? It has nothing to do with you or me. It has to do with the property. And if that property is worth X amount of dollars, that property rehab is getting worth X amount of dollars, double what you have into it. The thing that a lot of people don't look at is what is that project making every single month, every single week. The banks look at it all. Not only is this thing 50% loan to value, but it's generating $40,000 a month, whatever it is. Probably more than that,
yeah,
I would imagine.
More than that.
Yeah, and so they're like, okay, my payment is gonna be this for what I've already got leveraged out. The extra is gonna be this. He's already making more than enough to cover not only ours, but plus he's $50,000 in the black.
Yeah.
So this is a no-brainer for the bank. And I've even done some stuff with the bank before where I'm like, I'll pay you before I get paid. I went into a big project I was doing over in Boise, and I needed money. I had some, but I needed a bunch more. And they're like, why would we do this? And I said, because I'm going to screw your position, first position on this property, and all this rent is going to go into my account, which I have with you, and you can pull it out before I get paid. And the guy's like, whoa, I don't think I've ever been proposed something like that. I was like, there's no way you guys can lose, because I'm collecting more than will cover it. But I said, I pay you, then I'll get paid. I'm not going to get it and then write you a check. You're going to pull it right out of there. Direct deposit, whatever, direct withdrawal, whatever it needs, and you guys have complete control. And they did it. Because they're like, man, we're in this now. It wasn't no $15 million project. It was a lot smaller, but still, you just got to propose it in a way that they would make that happen, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I like what you said earlier is that it does not matter what Jason or Colter have on our balance sheet, right? My balance sheet could have a $1 net, or
$1
net value, right? Like it could be, they really don't care. What they're looking for is the asset. And this one property could produce, I think it's $987 per unit on average. You're looking at $2.3 million in revenue per year. And then you break that down into all the costs. So you have your management costs, you have your on-site managers, you have your costs of repairs, maintenance people, landscapers, pool maintenance, all of those things that are broken down. You have common utilities that need to happen. There's a splash pad on the property, there's a pool on the property. And so you break that down, and if you end up netting, and so in commercial property as large as this is, we're talking about net operating income.
Yeah.
So let's get into the boring of it, right?
Yeah.
So the boring numbers is, okay, net operating income is simply now a calculation, and that's how you reverse into what the value of the property is. So in commercial property, you talk in grades of A, B, C, D type property, right? And so A being obviously the best, and then as you get lower, you have different types, styles, and quality of craftsmanship, as well as quality from a standpoint of maintenance. We figure this property is going to be a Class B property.
Nice.
And when you talk in commercial valuation, they're going to talk about a cap rate. And so in cap rates, if it is a lower grade of property, a Class D property, you need to expect a higher rate of, or higher cap rate, or a higher rate of return based on your risk into that property.
You should be in the 10s and 12s.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But when you get into the higher grade property, let's call it the A and B, there are some that are going for 4, 5, and 6 caps, which in my mind, it makes it difficult to really make money in those ranges.
Yes. But
in this particular property, if it were to be a 6 cap, then you reverse that into your $1.1 million property, or $1.1 million net operating income divided by the 6 cap. I think we end up being around $18 million in value.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, it's all about numbers. I mean, you buy something residential, it's all about the appraisal. All about the appraisal. They could care less what you rent it for. It has no bearing on the value. When you get into commercial, it's all about, I mean, sure, they're going to appraise it, but part of that appraisal is how much money that makes. When you go buy a gas station, it does have something to do with the building and the land that it's on, but it's mostly how much money does it make with how much money does it go out, and what's the net? What can you make every single month after? That's how they value a commercial property.
Yeah.
And same with this property here, they're going to value it totally different than what they would just a single family or a duplex or a threeplex or a fourplex.
Yeah.
Anything over 4 is considered commercial. And so it all is about the numbers.
Yep. And what they're going to lend on is what they call a DSCR loan, so a debt service coverage ratio. And so if you've purchased the property really well and you've gotten it for a good purchase price, you can finance almost the whole thing, right? And the down payment rules can change in some regards, or if you're refinancing, if you get a DSCR loan, and it will be covered by that net operating income by about a minimum of 1.25, 1.35 obviously being more comfortable for the bank. They will lend you that money all day long because they're covered by a 25% percentage of margin that allows for them to be protected
no matter
and secured in a property that is valued far and above what it is that they've had to lend on the property.
Well, they get tough. When it gets tough for them is when they're going to borrow or they're going to lend $15 million on a property that appraises for $18 million, and the net income or the net operating income is barely covering this, what do they call it? The service, not the service, the debt service, barely covering.
debt service,
the debt service. Yeah, that's too risky for them. So anytime you can make those numbers better, the more banks are going to jump on and give you money for that, finance it.
Yeah. So there you go. We've got a breakdown of a really amazing property. Some of the conversations we've had in the last week is, hey, you know what? I'm connected with a few folks that have, $3, $5, $10 million in their IRAs. You are, as and so is Jason.
Yeah.
And so these phone calls have been really fun. It's like, hey, is this a project that you'd be interested in tackling? And some are like, you know what? I'm not interested in being too far out of state. I don't want to go that far. But others are like, yeah, that's the kind of project I'd like to be involved in. And then it becomes, okay, are you looking for equity? Are you looking for a preference on being paid back on you providing a private loan? Or is it a pref plus an equity conversion? And then we can have those conversations. If somebody will just simply say, hey, you know what? Yes, I'm interested in a project like this. Let's dive into the details you guys have already provided. This group that I've got that has already been to the property, have estimated out what the project's going to take to remodel. Man, it's just packaged up to where in 6 to 12 months, and then 18 months after we've had it filled, we've got a sales price that really starts to pad a bank account.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's some of the conversations I've had is the one guy who's got an IRA. He's like, I don't know how I want to participate, but he goes, I think I might want to participate. He's got to talk to his spouse, and then his brother's a part of it. He's like a third party, so he's got to have his approval. So they're talking. I pitched it.
Oh, very good.
They're talking. Yeah, and I said, so how do you see this play out to get the money? Where do you want to be, and how do you want to secure it? He goes, I don't know, but he goes, I would like to be a part of it. So who knows how that'll happen? But he's open for the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well. And I love that that's, the conversation is now we have, and we're really probably within a 48-hour window of this conversation to say, hey, we've got it secured and it allows for us to move forward. We've got it under contract and then we can close by the end of the month.
Yeah.
And when we have conversations with investors, and I was relaying this to the sellers today, I just said, look, all we're coming down to is time. Are we capable of tackling this project?
Definitely.
100%. Right? But now you've put this on this to say, hey, you know what? We need it within 3 days, or we need it within 7 days. And when I call my investors, the guys that I've worked with for years and years, I can't be like, hey, you know what? I need $3.2 million.
And I need it in 48 hours.
I need it in 48 hours. It's like,
and it's got to be an unsecured, it's got to be in a briefcase in a Geo Metro color blue.
Down by the bridge.
It's got to happen tonight. That's when they start thinking, yeah, I think I'm out.
Right. But we also, as we've had these conversations, when we talk about having the opportunity of a lifetime come around but once a week, it is for real.
Yeah.
Right? Because I've got another 2,100 acres that just came on earlier today, said, hey, you know what? We've got a project here. And I'm like, okay, but I need you to find another 400 or 500 acres and I've got a buyer for that. Right? And connecting those dots of people that I know and I've talked to over the last decade to say, hey, I know that they want 2,500 acres. If you can get that for them, they're interested and they will move forward.
Yeah.
2,100 acres falls below their threshold of what they're trying to find. And, and then you have another project. We looked at a single family house. I'm like, I don't know that one makes sense. And then he says, I talked to the seller and he has 15 other houses he wants to dump at the same time. And I said, now I'm interested.
No, that one may not make sense, but it may make up for the ones that do make sense.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's just having these conversations and allowing for us to entertain what they mean. I can be having all these conversations in the truck to the next job, or and it allows for me to just make a few phone calls to say, hey, are you interested? I know we've talked about this before, whether it's the last decade or 15 or plus years, combining and connecting those resources and connections that we have allow for us to put cool deals together.
Yeah. I love it. It really is. Somebody taught me a long time ago. Why? Well, Tommy Boys who taught it to me, but other people have said it since then. But why say no when it feels so good to say yes? And I look at that in almost everything. Somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I've got this, this, and this, and this. I'm like, it's a yes. Now let me dig into it. It may turn out to be, it's not going to fit into our what we want to do and what we want to accomplish, but I never come up right off the bat and say, that is going to work. It's like that house. That house isn't going to work for me. The numbers don't work. Oh, he's got another 14 he wants to sell? Now that house may make sense. Because I mean, this just by itself may not make sense, but I could spread that out over 15 houses, and these other ones are really good price, then that may make sense. And for him, he may get his price on that one house. The rest of them, he may be okay to, fluff numbers, or not fluff, but give it a little bit deeper discount because he's getting what he needs out of this one. Because we don't know what investors or what their pain is. That may be one that he owns with his sister. And he's got to pay his sister off, and he can't take any less than that. But the rest of them, he could care less about. So give me this one, and I'll help you out with the rest, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. We just don't know.
Well, and it's just the spreading of margins, or it's asset allocation or purchase price allocation that says, okay, well, if this deal's $175,000, but we have 14 other deals that add up to, let's call it, $3 million. Well, I can take zero equity in this one if I can add it up to $500,000 in equity elsewhere. Yep. Or even a few $100,000. If they all cash flow, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Allow me to cash flow 15 rather than just taking over the one that doesn't.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. Good episode. We had to dig more into some of these details like that. I mean, you didn't tell too much about it, but I think people can understand it's not so much, I actually, I don't even know how to put it to words, but it's not the deal. Maybe it's not the deal, but maybe it's the action around the deal. Like there's deals out there to be had. There's deals out there that come our way. Some are good, some are bad. But don't ever just say no to a deal. Like, let's run the numbers. See if it works out. It may not work. Like you said, it may be over leveraged, but if it cash flows, I might be interested. I may be buying at the top of the market, but if it cash flows me $300 a month, who cares, right? And it maybe you buy it at a big discount, but you can't make a cash flow. I don't care about the discount because I can't make a cash flow, right? So there's a bunch of different things. Like, I had somebody approach me with this house that was like $100,000 under market value, and I'm like, well, it might be, but it's in a weird spot. The reason why they're giving us such a discount is because they can't sell it, so it really is at a discount, and I can't make a cash flow for that property. So I said, I'm not interested. Wow, you're not interested? I was like, no, I'm not interested. You know somebody who might be? I was like, maybe, but I said, just doesn't fit into what I want. So it's all about just finding the deals and then see if the numbers work. Yeah. And if they don't work for you, they may work for somebody else.
And entertaining every conversation that allows for you to at least find out what other motivations there might be.
Yeah.
You can start to fit those needs that somebody's looking for. So this guy, you know what? He, like you said, his sister may be involved in this deal, and he absolutely needs to make a $2,000 profit, or else he's going to be shunned from.
Yep, he's going to have to eat crow, whatever it is, you know.
And so he'll give that $2,000 up over here in order to make it a win-win transaction. And so it just comes down to fundamental needs and hopes and wants of those individuals that you're talking to. So, anyways, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, great conversation.
There are so many deals. The opportunity of a lifetime comes around but once a week. Let's talk about those and grow and create the opportunities of a lifetime.
Go out there and find them.
That's right.